Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kane. Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Young, welcome. Real quick, how much approximately is left unspent from the close to $6 trillion of COVID relief that Congress has passed over the last 18 months?
Senator Johnson, you know ARP was just passed, so a significant amount of that remains unobligated. But I can get that for the committee.
Well, the reason I ask is when we passed the $1.9 trillion, put air quotes, COVID relief package, there's about $1 trillion left unspent of the previous $4 trillion spent in 2020. According to the numbers I saw from CBO, about $700 billion of the COVID relief package, the $1.9 trillion partisan package, isn't even going to be spent till 2022 to 2028. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate to make sure we roll these programs out in a responsible way.
But that's not COVID relief. That's something else.
It absolutely is. COVID relief can take time to get out to ensure that some long-term inequities that will last past the pandemic are dealt with.
Okay, well, I hope COVID's over before 2028. Can you give me that number, though? I'd like to know, as of today, how much of the $6 trillion of COVID relief remains unspent.
We'll make sure all the members on the committee have that data.
Just real quick, because you're talking about equity and taxes. Right now, the top 1% make about 21% of income, and they pay 40% of the income tax. The top 10% make about 48% of the income, and they pay 71% of income tax. And by the way, the top 1% will always make a larger share of income, because that's the definition of 1% and definition of 10%. What do you think would be more equitable? Again, top 1%, 20% of income, they pay 40% of tax. Top 10%, they make 48% of income, pay 71% of the income tax. What do you think would be more equitable? What should those percentages be?
Senator Johnson, the question I have is they're paying the percentages. Let's take your numbers are fact. That doesn't mean that they're paying a fair share compared to what regular Americans.
So again, if you're making, let's concentrate on the top 10%. If you're making almost 50% of the income, what percentage of the income tax should you pay?
What we are suggesting is that the wealthiest Americans go back to paying what they paid before the tax cuts of the last administration. So we are moving those tax rates back to 39.6%.
What do you think is the maximum amount any American should pay out of $1 of income to the federal government? Recognizing certain states take 10% or even more. But what should be the maximum amount an American should pay for every $1 of income should contribute to the federal government? What should that percent be?
So we have a tax plan. What it says is no one that makes under $400,000 should pay more than they paid now. So we have a commitment not to raise those taxes. But what we're saying is those that make more than $400,000 should pay.
But what's that percent? I mean, what do you think? So what is the percent that an American will pay out of $1 of income?
Senator John, overall, we think the right tax rate is 39.6% for the top rate.
So about 40%, okay. Senator Stabenow was talking about the glory years of budget surpluses, which, trust me, I wish we were back there in the late Clinton years. The reason we got there is, first of all, extremely strong economy through the 1990s. And I would argue that was set up by what Ronald Reagan did in terms of supply-side economics and setting up the conditions for business investment. So revenue actually did grow in 2000 to 20% of GDP. But that was short-lived. Because Senator Grassley is right. Long-term, no matter what the top marginal tax rate, we get about 17.4%. That's kind of what the American people in the end say that's about all we're going to pay, and they figure out some way to avoid paying the high top marginal tax rate. But the reason we had the surpluses is because spending was 18.5, 18, 17.7, 17.7% of GDP during those 4 years. Now, historically, it's gone up during recessions, like in the 83, early 80s to about 22.9. The first 4 years of President Obama, again, he came to office with the recession, it was 24 to about 22%. Last 4 years was about 20.8%. The president's budget is calling across the board for 24.5% spending of GDP. Don't you think that is way too much?
So one, I'll point out that those times that Senator Stabenow you mentioned, the top tax rate was 39.6%. So we're trying to go back. to those levels. So, you know, we talk about spending as the problem. One thing we think we should do is change the tax rates to make sure we do go back to fair rates at a time of a strong economy. And we don't think people are paying their fair share. We've seen that in the data. We've had a tax cut that did not do what we claimed it would do. So we are trying to go back and make sure that the top earners and corporations do something to make sure we can spend on
Just
infrastructure.
Final point, that what I was pointing out, those outlays are going from averaging about 20% in the last 4 years around Obama to 24.5%. That's a massive amount of spending increase when we have, let's face it, a very strong economy, 5.8% unemployment. When I went to college, that was almost considered full employment. In my state, it's 3.8%. I just don't get all this spending when we're $28 trillion in debt. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Toomey should be available on video.